A Sunday afternoon's secret. The sun hung lazily above La Grande Jatte, casting a golden glow across the island's lush greenery. It was a perfect Sunday afternoon in 1884, and the park was alive with Parisians seeking respite from the city's bustle. Among the crowd stood Émilie, her parasol tilted just so, shielding her porcelain skin from the sun's eager rays. She wore a fashionable dress of soft pink, cinched tightly at the waist, a silent testament to the corset beneath. Her eyes, hidden behind the brim of her hat, scanned the scene before her with quiet desperation. Émilie was searching for Henry. Their affair had begun 6 months ago, a chance encounter at a literary salon that blossomed into stolen moments and whispered promises. Henry was married, which weighed heavily on Émilie's conscience but did little to quell the fire in her heart. They had agreed to meet here, amidst the anonymity of the Sunday crowd. Henry had sworn he would leave his wife and start anew with Émilie. Today was the day he would tell her when and how. As Émilie's eyes roamed the park, they fell upon a young couple near the water's edge. The woman laughed, carefree and open, as her companion regaled her with some amusing tale. Émilie felt a pang of envy. How simple their love must be, unburdened by secrets and lies. A small dog yapped at her feet, breaking her reverie. She shooed it away with a gentle wave, careful not to draw attention to herself. Anonymity was vital in this delicate dance of deception. The minutes ticked by, each one stretching longer than the last. Émilie's grip on her parasol tightened, her knuckles white with tension. Where was Henry? Had he lost his nerve? Or worse, had his wife discovered their plan? A group of children ran past, their laughter echoing across the park. Émilie watched them go, remembering her carefree days of youth, and how different her life might have been if she'd made other choices and taken other paths. As the afternoon wore on, Émilie began to attract curious glances from nearby parkgoers. A woman standing alone for so long was bound to draw attention, no matter how still she tried to remain. She felt exposed, vulnerable, like a butterfly pinned to a board for all to examine. A familiar figure caught her eye, just as she was about to admit defeat and leave. Dapper in his dark suit and top hat, Henry made his way through the crowd. Émilie's heart leapt, and immediately sank as she realized he wasn't alone. On his arm was his wife, resplendent in a deep blue gown that complemented her fair complexion. They strolled casually, stopping occasionally to greet acquaintances or admire the view. They looked every inch the perfect couple. Émilie felt the ground shift beneath her feet. This was not the plan, and this was not what Henry had promised. She watched, frozen in place, as the couple drew nearer. For a brief moment, Henry's eyes met hers. In that instant, Émilie saw a flicker of recognition, quickly masked by practiced indifference. He inclined his head slightly, a gesture that could have been mistaken for a polite acknowledgement to a stranger. And then they were past her, continuing their stroll as if she were nothing more than another fixture in the park landscape. Émilie stood rooted to the spot, her mind reeling. The park around her seemed to blur, the crowd's chatter fading to a dull roar in her ears. How could she have been so foolish? So naive? With trembling hands, she closed her parasol. It was time to leave, retreat to her small apartment sanctuary, and lick her wounds privately. But as she turned to go, she caught sight of something that made her pause. A man stood at an easel near the park's edge, his brush moving in quick, precise strokes across the canvas. He was capturing the scene before him, the sunny afternoon, the fashionable crowd, and the timeless beauty of a day in the park. Émilie found herself drawn to him, curious how he interpreted this moment that had shattered her world. As she approached, she realized with a start that she recognized him, Georges Seurat, the painter whose work had caused such a stir in artistic circles. She stood quietly behind him, watching as he worked. His canvas was a riot of tiny dots of color, somehow coalescing into a coherent image when viewed from a distance. It was unlike anything Émilie had ever seen before. "What do you think, mademoiselle?" Sura asked suddenly, startling her from her reverie. Émilie studied the painting carefully, before replying. "It's extraordinary," she said softly. "You've captured not just the scene, but the very essence of the day." Sura smiled, pleased by her assessment. "That's precisely what I'm aiming for. To capture a moment in time, preserve it for eternity." As Émilie gazed at the canvas, she realized something profound. In Sura's painting, she was just another figure in the crowd, indistinguishable from the rest. Her pain, her heartbreak, her shattered dreams, none of it was visible in those tiny dots of color. To the world, to history, she would be nothing more than a woman with a parasol on a sunny Sunday afternoon. Her secret would remain her own, preserved yet hidden within the larger tapestry of life. For the first time that day, Émilie felt a sense of peace settle over her. She thanked Sura for his time and turned to leave the park, her steps lighter than before. As she walked away, Émilie made a decision. She would not let this moment define her. Like the figures in Sura's painting, she was part of a greater whole, a tiny dot in the vast canvas of life. Her story was her own, and it was far from over. The sun began its descent, as Émilie left La Grande Jatte behind, her parasol now slung casually over her shoulder. The future stretched before her, a blank canvas waiting to be filled with new dreams, new hopes, and perhaps one day, a love that need not hide in the shadows of a Sunday afternoon.